And today marks 51 days until Inauguration Day. And as we draw closer to the 46th presidency, it's a fitting time to focus on presidential leadership. Each morning between now and then, we're going to sit down with historians who have written on presidents with this central question in mind: what can their examples teach Joe Biden? Today, we focus on Dwight D. Eisenhower.
3 days from now, after half a century in the service of our country, I shall lay down the responsibilities of office as, in traditional and solemn ceremony, the authority of the presidency is vested in my successor. We now stand 10 years past the midpoint of a century that has witnessed 4 major wars among great nations. 3 of these involved our own country. Despite these holocausts, America is today the strongest, the most influential, and most productive nation in the world. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Let's bring in right now historian, writer, and journalist Evan Thomas. He's author of one of my favorite Ike books, and that's saying a lot. I love reading about Ike. And it was Ike's Bluff, President Eisenhower's secret battle to save the world. And Evan, you know, we might as well, we had Steve Inskeep on before talking about when a president leaves office, often things change very quickly. I was giving the example of Dr. Brzezinski had a red phone in his house, specially wired, at 12 noon on January 20th, 1981. The Secret Service came in, unceremoniously ripped the phone out of the wall, left a huge hole there, said, "See you guys later," got in their SUVs that had been outside the Brzezinski house for 4 years and drove off. And that was it. And it reminded me of a hilarious scene in Ike's Bluff when poor Ike got home and tried to do something he hadn't done in 20 years. Tell us about that.
He tried to make a phone call. He was so unmodern and so used to being cared for that when he got to his new home in Pennsylvania, Gettysburg, the Secret Service just drove off and he tried to make a phone call. And he didn't know that he had to dial the numbers. He just thought automatically there was an operator there. You can get very disconnected to the real world in the high office, and Eisenhower did. But in a greater sense, he never lost his contact with reality. Even though he was used to being a 4-star general, he knew what truth was and he knew what power was.
What can Harry Truman learn from Dwight Eisenhower? I'm sorry, not Harry Truman. Well, I've been talking about Harry Truman a lot, and I was actually thinking about their transition because I had read a relative of Harry Truman's talking about what a great job Harry Truman did preparing Dwight Eisenhower because FDR had done such a sorry job, obviously knowing he was dying, not telling Harry Truman about anything, despite the fact the two men loathed each other. And that meeting, my God, between Truman and Eisenhower, transition meeting was cold, but Harry Truman bent over backwards to make sure that Ike was prepared.
Well, you know, both those men were so deeply steeped in our system that whatever personal animosity they had, they were going to find a way to get along. And they also had a deep recognition of the problems the United States faced. This is the very beginning of the nuclear age. And for the first time, the President of the United States has the power to end the world. That's an awesome power, and both men understood it. Truman as the first to actually use the weapon, to use a nuclear weapon, and Eisenhower as the guy who was inheriting this world and the sudden growth of the H-bomb. Was, in fact, just as Ike was being inaugurated, we were testing our first H-bomb. So they knew the world in which they lived, and that meant that they had to cooperate with each other.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.